little bit when I go ahead and do it. All right. Thank you for joining us here at K Jazz of Arizona. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, everybody. It's Kenner said that, and you're here. Welcome to our fourth installment of Mizmor le David, a choral presentation on the Psalms. And for those of you who are joining us, I am here with our centennial artist in residence, and more importantly, my dear, dear friend from back in the LA days. Please welcome Chris Hardin.
Nice to be here. Hello, everybody.
And as you can hear, it's going to be an amazing weekend with Chris joining us for Friday night services, as well as musically directing and conducting the Hallelujah Centennial Concert. I'm so glad you're here.
Me too. Me too.
So thank you all for joining us. We are going to be really having an open dialogue, Chris and I, about music itself, Jewish music, where music has been, where music is going, why we love music so much. But first, Chris, why don't you tell everybody about yourself, your upbringing, where you come from, how you learned to do that, and other things.
Both my parents, my mom and dad, were bass players. They met in the Seattle Symphony. They had 5 kids, me being the oldest, and I have 4 younger sisters. We are all musical. We all sang. We are kind of jokingly referred to as the Von Trapp family in Seattle. They started me on piano. Well, I guess I started myself on piano when I was 3. I wrote my first song when I was 4. Started me on oboe at 7, clarinet at 9. By the time I was finished junior high and high school, I had managed to pick up all the woodwind, brass, strings, and percussion. I could play the whole symphony. Not all at once. Dad was the professional musician in the family. He was in Eisenhower's White House band, played bass with that. And he was also, if you are old enough to remember the Hi-Los, Dad played bass with them for a while. If you are a jazz listener of any means and you know the name Oscar Peterson, his trio, Ray Brown was his bass player, and he took lessons from Dad. So that's kind of gives you an idea of the level of musicianship, professionalism, greatness, if you will, that my dad was. And of the 5 of us, I'm the only one that carried it on professionally. The other ones were smarter, and they took on careers that actually helped sustain them in a much easier way. Dad taught choir, was a choir director at churches, a couple Lutheran and Presbyterian church. That was my indoctrination to religion. And through all my earlier years, even in college when I went to live with Dad, he was still directing choir. But it never, Christianity, the religion itself, never really spoke to me. Fast forward a few years, I meet who is now my ex-wife, but at the time we were dating and getting serious and talking marriage, she said that one day she would like to be Jewish. I didn't know what Jewish was. I mean, I of course I knew what it was, but I don't think I had ever met a Jew, although I'm sure I did, just wasn't aware of it. Okay, again, fast forward, we get married, we're about to have a child. And the need for a religious experience becomes deeper in us. Kehilah is born, my daughter, and Jennifer and I went to a rabbi in LA, and he's a Reform shul, and he directed us up to a conservative schooling, if you will. It's a 6-month class. He didn't think reform would be enough for us, so he wanted to go the conservative route. So we did. We did the 6 months, dipped in the mikveh, became Jews. We did some shul shopping, ended up at Valley Beth Shalom. And my whole intention of doing this was for spiritual reasons, because Judaism really spoke to me deeply inside. And we were there for about a year before they found out what I do with this and with the writing and all. And so we became active members in their choir. And the more they found out what I did here, it was like 90% spiritual belonging, 10% career, musical. Within a year, that flopped over to 90% this and 10% spiritual, because I became a professional Jew. And when you're a professional Jew, especially if you're doing the music, there's not a lot of time to sit and reflect with the words, right? So praying through music became my avenue to God, to praying. The way I wrote, the way I played, the way I take certain passages, how they spoke to me inside and how that came out through my fingers. There was one person in particular, one family, who was a student of mine, not really a student, a client is more of the word. I would be her arranger, her accompanist. I did all of her recordings. Shira Fox.
No, Shira Fox, absolutely, of course.
Her mom, Judy Fox, who's a cantor, who's like my sister. She and I are like best friends. She told me one day that she goes, Shira came home from a session at your place saying, "Mommy, God talks through Chris's fingers." I thought that was so sweet, but that's really how I feel. What comes out of these fingers when I play or when I write, that's how I talk to God. That gives you kind of a brief synopsis.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just want to make sure that everyone can hear us okay. Can you hear Chris okay? Give me a thumbs up. Good? Okay, sounds good. We never know. I mean, we're talking here and we never know. So
we have to do all that over again?
No, yeah, right. So one of the really wonderful things about your upbringing, as it definitely in your journey, as it applies to this, is that, as you can see here, we have friends who are Jewish.
Yeah.
We also have friends who are not Jewish. Yeah. And whether we're Jewish or not, we possess, as you said, this love for communicating to God through music.
Yes.
And God simultaneously speaks to us through music.
Yes.
So was there a piece, a sacred piece of music that spoke to you, either in the Jewish religion that you said, this is for me, or maybe the piece of music that got you started in working or writing for the temple, or even in the church? Either one. Is there a particular piece of music that was like, I really love that piece, or it still resonates with you now?
Yeah, there is. Bialik, I think, is the composer's name. The song is Shabbat HaMalchah. I took a class maybe 4 years into my Judaism, if you will, writing music for Synagogue from Dr. Michael Isaacson, a very good friend. And one of our assignments, he handed out this piece of music, Shabbat HaMalchah, to us, and he goes, "Make it your own. Come back next week." And I'm sorry, I did not bring it back. It's in my briefcase in your office, but I have. I wrote a 6-voice a cappella jazz setting for it, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But Shabbat HaMalchah, Shabbos, it's the day. We have so many holidays, 13 of them, that we.
Can you grab it real quick?
Oh no, okay, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. And now a word from our sponsor.
It wraps up for me the whole idea of religion, of religious experience, of connection with God, of music, of everything that is Shabbos, Shabbat, that one day. And Shabbat HaMalchah, it was the first Jewish piece of Jewish music I wrote. and it still hangs with me today.
Do you have like 5 to 10 seconds of it that you can show us?
The melody. So I took that and I did it just unison. My ex-wife and I recorded this multi-track, and she did the soprano part and I did all the other parts, and it's almost Gregorian chant-ish, because the Gregorian chant is based on a sixth, the regular chord with a sixth in it. Right, it's very, very Gregorian chant-ish. So it starts out that way, just unison. Then the second time through, I broke it into harmony. So on and so forth. That's something.
Don't stop. Don't stop.
That's something that has helped me kind of, if you will, make my mark in Jewish music, is my harmonic structure. And because I was raised around a jazz musician, my dad, jazz harmonies. Jazz per se, people want to think of Thelonious Monk or the Miles Davis or that kind of jazz. That's not my kind of jazz. I like chordal structures. I like harmonic things. Like what I heard, I just take something like I want to do. In fact, what I used to do, oh gosh, I used to play for a lot of Jewish weddings and functions, bar mitzvahs, etc. I would have to play the piano while the rest of the band took a break, so there was continuous music. Oh gosh, what was the name of that song? In the Christian world. Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty. Right? That's a very famous hymn. I would play at these Jewish functions. Nobody knew it. I was having a blast. In fact, my first gig I did when I moved down to live with my dad after graduating high school. Moved down to Portland. Again, dad on the bass, me on the piano. He took me into this club, this bar. It was just piano and bass. It was my first really professional gig. And I said, okay, where's the music? And he goes, right here. And he pulls out 2 hymnals out of his bass, Lutheran hymnals. He goes, turn to page 236. I turn, he goes, okay, 1, 2. That's the whole 4 hours. Wow. We played out of a hymnal, just reharmonizing and having a blast. I love to do that. That's where I live, harmonic language. And that's what stood me out from others.
So that doesn't sound Jewish.
Yeah, exactly.
Though, right?
Oh, no, not at all.
We were talking about that a lot last week, and have been talking about that because we have had Jackie Huber from Mountain View Presbyterian Church showcase a little bit about what they're going to be, what the singers of Mountain View Presbyterian Church are going to go ahead and be playing, and it sounded like what you were saying, the piece that you had just played, where it sounds very grand and very, I would say, happy, majestic type of the way. And what we talked about was that usually Jewish music doesn't sound happy. It sounds very sad.
Because it's in a minor key.
It's in a minor key. All right. We talked about that. We talked about that a little bit last week, especially when Stan Lewis was on the program. Because with Baptist music, it never sounds sad. Even when it sounds sad, it sounds absolutely happy.
Absolutely.
You know, more of the ethereal. So my question for you is, what do you think is, I would say, how has your music been received by the conservative movement, which you go ahead and you work in, and what do these changes, I would say, in Jewish music, how is that impacting the Jewish musical world in either direction? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Okay. Does everybody understand the question? I hope I did. No, what it really is that we have this very vast tradition of music, and a lot of us, we have the music from our childhoods, the ones that we grew up on, and that is played in a certain way. And sometimes when we don't hear that music from our childhood, we get very upset, you know. And in the conservative movement, there is a musical set tradition, as you were talking about. So here's Chris making all of these wonderful changes in it, and I want to know how that has been received and what that says about involving these contemporary musical structures into Jewish music and church music as well.
For me, well, like earlier I said, I pray through my music.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a huge fan of the Jewish, I'm sorry, folks, of Jewish music of yesterday. I'm not. It's, as you just mentioned, it's in a minor key, D minor, mostly the key of our people.
Right. Can you give an example of what we're talking about when we say, you know, like Hatikva or Oseh Shalom or something like that?
Perfect. And again, it was written in D minor.
Right.
Does that sound happy?
Absolutely not.
No. But, you know, forgive me, my mind just kind of went off on a little tangent.
Oh, that's okay.
If I were to take and rewrite that, which I know I'm going to get shot at for, but even keeping it Jewish, maybe putting in it a fregish. Fregish is a mode, it's major, but it has a minor fourth, which kind of gives it an Eastern European feel.
Right, like that. It's Hava Nagila.
Right.
Right.
That's still kind of sad.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Jewish music, with the exception of some of the more popular current composers of Jewish music, it all had that dark minor feel to it. Then along came people like Meir Finkelstein, Debbie Friedman, Craig Taubman, Debbie's. Right? It still has a somber feel to it, yet it's in a major key, and it just automatically is bright. Craig's Shehechianu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. It is in a minor key, but it's the way it's treated. It just gives it a little bit more of a lift.
Right. But also Craig's Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu is
Big
gorgeous.
we sing that here every Friday night. If you play a little bit, I can sing it for everybody. It's, yeah.
Sing it.
It's D-A Hashkivenu Shalom Ve'hamidenu Shomreinu Lechaim. Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So keep going, but I wanted people to go ahead. So you're taking these sad sounds, and I know we're having some things. Oh, so Susan Sendro, hi Susan, says, well, if you're not supposed to clap in a service, it's no wonder the music is a downer.
My closest friend, also my boss for many years, Cantor Phil Barron of LIVESTREAMING Only. He and I, you know, this is going to be loaded, okay?
Yeah.
When a singer has a pianist and an accompanist that they work with all the time, you can't help but bond.
Right.
Now, if that couple be it man, woman, woman, whatever. If those two entities connect on a mutual friendship level, it's even that much better. Phil and I, we breathe together. I worked with him for so long. He's worked with me for so long. It's not where the singer expects me to follow them, which I do. It's one of the best things I do is I'm an accompanist. But he also follows me. He's worked with me long enough to know when if we're going progression. And at the end of the phrase, I will sometimes do something like, if I put a little retard on that, Phil waits for me to get back to here before he opens. That's the kind of breathing we do together. We talked a lot at length about not clapping during service. And I get the reasoning behind it. I don't agree with it, but I get the reasoning behind it. That you are not to be, it's not a performance. It's the words that are the central focus of the prayer. Music, now here's where I kind of have a tug of war. Music is the vehicle to deliver those words. Or words is the vehicle to deliver the music. I think that one needs the other just as much as the other needs the one.
I agree.
I disagree with not applauding, because even though it isn't supposed to be a performance, those of us who do this and sing the choir, those of us, we practice. We pour our hearts out to deliver this sound, hoping that this sound carries the words into the listener even deeper than just saying them. For example, if you take the Avot, right? You go from the extreme ultra-Orthodox who, okay, done, right?
Right.
To the most relaxed Jew, Baruch Atah Adonai, and taking their time with it and focusing on each word.
Right.
Music helps that focus, because you have to see how the word fits here and it fits there, and it gives it, to me, it gives it more meaning.
Right, exactly. And I'm glad you said that. So for the word that you use, avot v'imahot, we call it the Amidah.
Right.
So we all know that in the temple times, especially when the Psalms were being done, all related back to the Psalms, that the Levitic priests, the Levitic orchestra and the Levitic choir would accompany the priests while they did their sacrificial ritual. In temple times, it was the sacrificing of an animal or three.
Right.
Okay. When the temple was destroyed, the sacrificial rite was no longer sacrifice of an animal, but a sacrifice of the heart. Okay, it was a prayer. It was a prayerful duty, and it's a standing prayer called the Amidah, and it's the central prayer of the service, of the morning service or the afternoon service, or on Shabbat, the Shabbat and afternoon service. So that is what Chris was referring to when he's talking about the Avot, the time where we have to be completely focused, I would say, at the climax, not necessarily here, but in here of the service. And so I know you were going to go ahead and play something to showcase that. And then I also want to talk about the other definition of clapping, which I know Susan's talking about, not necessarily at the end of a piece, but throughout the piece.
Oh, don't get me going on that.
Right? So we're going to talk a little about that too, because Chris has written several pieces that will get even the most, I would say, weary clapper to go ahead and clap.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll hear one of those today. But let's talk about where you were going with the mindset and focusing more in music that enables us to focus more on our connection with God, which is what the Amidah is supposed to do.
I'll go back again to my friend, Dr. Michael Isaacson, who wrote a book about basically about being an active listener. In this book, I mean, it has about being an active listener. Meaning, boy, I'm kind of bouncing all around here.
That's okay. We're musicians. We do that.
Whoa.
Yeah. Nancy knows what we're talking about here. She's a flautist.
Okay. In shul, hang here with me, folks. I hope it'll all make sense in the end. In shul, when you bring out a new song, or even a song that I'm really familiar with in my synagogue, in here, you guys probably don't know it at all, right? In my shul, some of the people who have been there for decades, for example, why are you doing that? We don't know that song. I can't pray to that.
Right.
I disagree. You can pray to that. And here is what I was bringing up about Mike Isaacson, the active listener. Instead of, okay, we'll wait till it's done. Sit there and listen to however that melody is being portrayed, right? For example, the Ahavat Olam that we're talking about doing Friday, possibly. I think it's Lachme, the two sopranos. I wrote an Ahavat Olam that I don't know how it came to write it that way, but when I started, that entered my mind, that sound of two women, not the words, because I don't know what the words are saying anyway, that sound was just, that sound took me to God. And I would just happen to be thinking of Ahavat Olam at the time, which, love.
Yeah.
So that's
and the relationship between God and humanity.
Yes.
So it is that dual.
Right. And I wrote it for two sopranos. To be an active listener means to sit there and those Ahavat Olam Beth Israel, those words. It's not the melody that God, there's so many melodies.
Ring to Craig's Ahavat Olam.
That's it.
Right, that's his. Or even Debbie's Ahavat Olam, which is like what everybody knows.
A new Ahavat Olam comes in, and you sit there, the words. So just see where that music takes your heart when you're listening to the words. And that's what being an active listener means. It doesn't mean, just because you can't participate in the prayer at the time it's being said, because that's kind of how Jews feel. We got to participate in the prayer. We got to say the prayers. This is how we connect with God. I beg to say that, no, you can just sit there and listen, which in my church years, and more often than not, I wish synagogues did this too. Instead of having the choir right here, up either on the bima or just off the bima, where everybody can see, they have them back like we did in church, up in a balcony in the back. Nobody's watching you. That's not the point. That's where it takes the performance out of it. And you do become an active listener when you're sitting in that pew and the music's coming around behind you. You're not going to turn around and say, "Hi, Mom." No, you're going to sit there and you're going to listen. And you're going to listen well, because there's nothing else to do.
Right.
That's what I wish synagogues would do more of, to allow more grandiose music, more new music, to touch their hearts. And I would love to see it get away from being up in the front and being back there.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, look, speaking of active listening, I think what's amazing and what's making this concert work is that you have 3+ faith movements that are coming together and openly listening to each other to try and resonate with each other and grab something out of the music from all three that says, this maybe wasn't mine before, but it is mine now.
Yeah.
And so I would love to hear if any of you have any. Oh, look at that, 12:30. We're at the halfway point. I did not time that. I did not rehearse that. If any of you who are listening have any questions for Chris, or have any, let's just say, comments on anything that Chris has said, we can go ahead and agree or disagree here.
Absolutely.
That is the beauty of chevruta, or partnership.
Can I jump in one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
If some of you were wondering what drew me to Judaism, that was one of the things right there. In Christianity, my pastor Rolander, really good friend of our families, I remember being like 12, 13 years old or something. I had to question about a passage and I disagreed with it. I don't remember what the passage was, but I disagreed with it. And I went to pastor and I said, Aki, how come this is said this way? Could it not be said this way? Could it not mean this? Could we not look at it as being this instead of this?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him saying, no, because this is what's in the scripture, and this is what we study, and this is how we must look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think anything of it at the time, but fast forward now into my 30s, and I see this kid go before a rabbi saying, kind of flashback, saying something similar, had a question about this, and the rabbi went, interesting, let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
That immediately, it was opened. It was opening. That plus also seeing 13-year-old kids get up in front of the whole congregation, becoming a bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah.
100%.
And their knowledge of their religion and their acceptance into the adult world, the way they're looking forward to the adult world, their charity starting at age 13,
right?
Their gift giving. Just there's so many things, but that just kind of came in mind. I'm sorry.
No. So why don't you go ahead? Who would like to ask a question? Or now we'll take about 5 minutes, and then we'll go into the second part. Nancy, go ahead and take yourself off mute.
Hi, this is kind of silly, but when you're talking about applause, this is something I kind of struggle with too, because when I've prepared something and I'm playing something that, Jackie or Marion and I have really worked on, and if it seems like something that the audience, the congregation would really enjoy, I would love applause.
Yeah.
I think that would be great. But if I'm playing something quiet and meditative and contemplative, I don't want applause, I want silence. So, I want people to just stop and rest in it for a moment, So I don't know, maybe you could put a sign up front and say,
like they do in television shows, applause.
Exactly. There we go.
I somewhat agree with you. There have been many times where during the silent meditation, when I work at Wilshire Boulevard, not at every place, but working with Don Gurney, Cantor Don Gurney at Wilshire Boulevard, they want me to play something meditative.
Meditative, yeah.
Well, during the silent Amidah, and I'll do. Something like that for the maybe 5 minutes it is. I agree with you in the sense that applause is inappropriate there. I think it's a better word. I would love it. I always love applause, but I think it would be inappropriate. But what I do get every now and then, somebody will walk up. I'm down with the congregation. I'm not up on the beam. I'm down, and I'll get somebody come up behind me and just give me a squeeze on the shoulder. That's nice. I like that. It's an acknowledgement that my music touched them. It doesn't have to be boisterous applause. It doesn't have to be audible. Just a nice touch on the shoulder, or from across the room, somebody looked at me and smiled once and gave me a wink. That's nice.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I like that.
That to me makes it all worth it.
Yeah.
In fact, at VBS, Valley Shalom, more often than not, I'm in, we call it my bullpen. I'm in a choir loft up stage right. As you're looking at stages on the left-hand side, there's a half wall there and the choir sitting there, and I have my grand piano there. So I have my own entrance, and I walk down the hallways. I'm walking out. More often than not, I get congregants come up to me and saying how much my playing during accompanying the cantor changed their experience for the better. I bring a life to it that others don't. In fact, first time, I'm going to digress again. First time I played for a Shabbat service at VBS, there was no music. I'm accompanying Cantor Herschel Fox. And he just goes like this to me, points to his eye, and I said, "What's that?" He goes, Whenever I do that, that's D minor. He's a good 20 feet away from me. He points, I give him a D minor, and he goes, "Evenu Shalom." Right? I'm playing it, and I'm doing. Like that. That's how I play. I had a woman who's on the board, Elaine Gill, who's such a dear friend, but really wasn't at first. she came walking up to me and put her hand on my shoulder and says, "That's not how we do it here." I said, "What do you mean that's not how we do it?" She goes, "That's not how it's played." I said, "Elaine, I'm sorry, but do you see any music in front of me?" "Well, no, but that's not how you put music in front of me, notes, how you want it to be played, I'd be happy to play it for you that way." They never put music. So this became how music is heard at VBS.
Wow.
Now, fast forward past that 5 years, maybe 6 years later, when I wasn't there for a Shabbos, they had another piano player come in. I think it was Benji.
Oh, okay.
I got back and everybody goes, "Where were you?" People went up to Benji and said, "That's not how Chris does it."
that now you want acknowledgement.
I got acknowledgement.
Once you become part of the minchag hamakom,
Right,
tradition of the place, the framework, that's really the best, most acknowledgement that a music director, accompanist, that can go ahead and get it. And I will tell you, my first year, Jackie Huber, who has been here for almost 25 years since she was 5, is amazing. I remember the first Shabbat that she was off, and I brought in another accompanist, and they played it a different way. And I remember all the people that came up to me. They said, "That's not how Jackie does it." and I said, "Wow!" I knew she was beloved.
Yeah,
I love her. I love you, Jackie. We all love you. But that is really the testament to how beloved you are.
Yeah.
When you could leave and you know that your place is secure to the point that people will come up who and by the droves and say, there's minhag hamakom, and then there's minhag shel Chris and minhag shel Jackie, and all of those places. So it shows how important music is to the Jewish worship service.
Absolutely. I think they call that job security.
Job security. Exactly. Now we just need to convince all the administrators of that, the board of trustees. Who has another question? Who would like to go ahead and ask another question of Chris, who we haven't heard from? Okay, Susie, you have a question? I love Susie's question.
Yeah.
There's Susan Sendro. She's still here. Anybody else? Kathy Diamond, do you have a question?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Interesting. Somehow I didn't think that in the conservative movement that they were using pianos and accompaniments during services.
Depends on which conservative shul.
That's very interesting. Someone told me that conservative seems to be moving more toward orthodoxy these days. Is that true?
It depends on where you are. Phil Barron, again, my friend, I was just over. He has 2 daughters that live up in Portland, so he and his wife flew up and Shabbos with me Friday. We had a similar conversation to what you're just speaking about conservative shuls. First, using instruments on Shabbos. East Coast, not so much. West Coast, all the time. This is, again, what I hear. I have never been to New York. I don't know what they do from personal experience, but this is from what I hear, that the East Coast conservative shuls are more on the conservative side of the spectrum, if you will, than the West Coast. West Coast is more, it's West Coast. They're a breed on their own, this West Coast, from California all the way up to Washington. They're more trend makers, shall I say. So yes, they do use music in shuls. Now, is conservative movement going more toward orthodoxy? This is a huge discussion and probably not one for this forum here, but just from the scuttlebutt that I'm hearing, that the conservative movement is starting to fail. It's the membership is dropping continuing, not just because of the pandemic. They started to drop even before then. For example, Valley Beth Shalom, my shul, they had 1,800 families when I joined almost 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They're now down to, I think, 1,250.
Oh, wow.
All conservative movement all around it's not working anymore like it used to. The people who have a need to belong to organized religion in itself is not as strong as it was. I don't know anything about the Reform movement. I'm guessing it's okay. I know the Orthodox movement is okay because they stick to the letter of the law, and that's one thing that's kept them alive through all these decades and centuries, is because they don't stray from the conservative movement. We've had, and Reform movement, we've had jokes thrown at us by being Judaism a la carte, whatever seems to work for you. But the conservative movement, yes, from all the reports that I've seen, it is not as strong as it was.
I think it's really, and I'm sure in the non-Jewish world too.
Yes, at churches it's happening
as well. So it's not just exclusive to really any religious denomination. I think though at the time, I think it's really dependent on the place of worship.
That too.
I think the conservative movement really came out of this. Well, Reform was getting a little bit too liberal for us, so we're going to go back into the middle ground, but still have boundaries, still have separation of, genders and things like that. Not LGBTQ friendly when it was first formed, now very LGBTQ friendly. And then you had the Reform that was, as you were saying, hey, whatever, any way is a way as long as you make it a way. Okay, well, that means I only need to go to shul 2 days a year and I'm totally fine and I'm a great Jew. So why do I need to go ahead and give back to our community? So there's even that way. As my former senior rabbi at Wilshire Boulevard Temple, Steve Leader, used to say and still does, what may be good for the Jews may not necessarily be good for Judaism. Yeah. And what may be good for Judaism may not necessarily be good for the Jews. And you can interpret it how that will. But I wanted to digress from something that was said where, what about these West Coast Jews? Why being a West Coast Jew, two West Coast Jews? Really, and we had talked about this last week, and why don't they play instrumental music in the synagogue? What happened to it, especially because of the fact, bringing it back to the Psalms when it was in the temple, because when the temple was destroyed, they wanted to abandon everything that mirrored temple worship. In the 1960s, I believe it was 1965, Rabbi Eli Shochet, this is for you. You know Rabbi Eli Shochet, he was the on Valley Circle. There's Temple Aliyah and the Shomrei Torah.
Shomrei Torah, yeah.
Very one of the leaders of ethical responsa in the conservative movement, Rabbi Eli Shochet. In 1965, the conservative movement passed an addendum that said, because on the West Coast, what really separates West Coast from East Coast? East Coast, you walk to shul. You live right by the shul. You can take the subway. Okay? West Coast, you owned a car, right? You would drive to shul sometimes. And so the problem was, if we can't drive, how are we going to go ahead and get to shul? So the thing was, in 1965, they passed a law that said you can go ahead and drive on a Shabbat as long as it's to shul. So the same blanket was, you can do things that violate the Shabbat work as long as it's for sacred purposes. So that's when we started saying, oh, well, maybe that's playing music too.
Okay.
As long as they're doing that. However, that got a little too liberal. So we need to pull that back a little bit, So you get two people in a room, you get three opinions.
Right.
We know that very, very well. So
what psalm is it with the cymbals and the lyre?
Psalm 150.
Bada bing, bada bing.
Psalm
bada boom.
150. Psalm 150. Praise God with the pluck of the lyre, with the bang of the drum, with the crashing of the cymbals in the temple. That's how worship was done.
Absolutely.
And what you're going to see on Sunday is a little reminiscence. Is that the correct word? Reminiscence?
Yeah.
A little nostalgic trip back, especially in the Chichester Psalms by Leonard Bernstein, of just how integral the instrumental music
Yeah.
was to the.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was stopped because somebody said, but what if a string breaks on the lute? They have to repair it.
Did I say that? Did I say that last week? I said that. Exactly. So the violation of is if you're not allowed to replace the string,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Right.
So it's not that playing instrumental music is a
No,
violation, but
no.
it's replacing the string. That's the word.
If a string were to
Yeah.
break, but how often does the string break?
On my guitar, it's about once a month,
No, really?
but I don't replace it I only play 5 string.
I have yet to break a string on a piano.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's true. And
You know?
and the way you play, I'm surprised it hasn't broken. It hasn't broken. I have a request from you, Chris. I want you to. So we were talking with Stan Lewis last week, who is the musical director and choral director of Pilgrim Rest Baptist Church. Okay. And he said that one of the reasons why he's so excited to be working with the Jewish community is because our shared freedom over oppression and slavery.
Okay.
And the prayer that we do every Friday night and Saturday morning, which comes from Exodus 15, Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, who is like you, O God, from among the gods, who is like you, awesome is your glory. You redeemed us from slavery in Egypt and made us a free people. And you continuously will be our help and lead us to, they say, salvation. So I want to show you a dichotomy now. I want Chris, I want to pick your mind because you are an encyclopedia of Jewish music. I want you to show us a Mi chamocha of yesterday. And then I want you to showcase a little bit of your Mi chamocha that you wrote.
Okay. Find it in there for me, would you? I got to see the words.
For Friday night. That could, I know, let's see, it is on.
Talk amongst yourselves for a minute.
Hi guys, sorry I'm late.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi, Jack.
Can't wait to see you tonight.
Can't wait to see you too. You missed our, go back and watch through the video. We were talking about you a
Yeah.
little bit called Min
Uh-oh.
Michelle Jackie
Ah,
and how beloved you are. Both.
likewise.
Yeah, an MVPC. So here is a Mi chamocha.
Oh, it doesn't have the beginning. Malchutecha.
It should be probably at the end of the last page. Is it at the end?
No.
Bokeh hayam u'malchutecha u'malchutecha ro'banecha bokeh hayam lifnei Moshe.
Where is it? I'm not seeing it.
Isn't it right in the middle? Oh no, sorry. Excuse me. Talk amongst yourselves. It's earlier in the book. You're talking about the erev, not the one
Yeah.
for the evening at time.
Evening.
Oh, here's Ahavat Olam right there. Part of the big thing about being a cantor is that you got to know where all the prayers are in all the books at all the same time. There we go.
That's it. Thanks, sir. Oh, I can almost see it. Believe me. I can't even remember what I wrote. Oh, forget the beginning part. Anyway, the body of it goes.
Clap at home if you want. Yeah, that's applaud worthy.
That's
I think. So that is definitely a melody of tomorrow, of today and tomorrow. So that's more of a gospel, right? Type of a micha mocha, or how would you classify that?
When I write the music out, I write, you've always put a description of the style of
Yeah.
the music,
Mhm.
like a pop ballad, et cetera, et cetera. I write R&B, and then in parentheses, it's really gospel, but don't tell anybody.
Right,
Because if you put the word gospel in the synagogue setting, they're going to throw it out.
right.
So say R&B. It's the same thing.
R&B. Nice. I'm gonna go get a tambourine
Yeah.
so that
There's something you were doing. You were clapping.
yeah.
Does your group clap on 2 and 4?
Do we clap on 2 and 4? Yeah, we clap on 2 and 4.
Really?
Yeah, we totally do. No, we do. We do clap on 2 and 4.
That has been a question that has plagued me ever since I became Jewish, is why do Jews clap on 1 and 3 instinctively? Hava, Nagila, Hava. Wouldn't it be better? Hava, Nagila. It just gives it a little more pep and a little
Right,
more.
100%.
I don't care.
100%. I don't know. I'm not going to say why most synagogues clap on 1 and 3.
But you're special.
Well, no, we do because they follow the cantor. They follow the cantor. But I will say that Rabbi Khan also claps on 2 and 4.
There you go.
So it's good. It's good, especially there's a joke in there somewhere. I know about 2 and 4. Let's open it up for for some other questions. Susan Sendro, I have been waiting patiently.
Thank you. First of all, obviously, Mr. Hardin, you brought the Portland weather with you. I don't.
I was looking forward to the sunshine when I
Yeah.
got here.
Just wait a day or two, but thanks for the Portland weather. It's a nice change. I do have a question that goes back to last week, and that is, I love the improvisation and the jazzy takes on a lot of the music that we know. But last week, Mr. Lewis and Cantor Ettinger talked about things that might be sacrosanct, that you absolutely will not change. And I think, Cantor, your example was Kol Nidre, that there would just be a revolution if you change Kol Nidre. So I wonder, Mr. Hardin, if there were any that you thought, either in the Christian music or Jewish music, are there some things that are clearly sacrosanct?
That is a great question.
That is a great question. Kol Nidre, that is such an intrinsic part of the day, the night. Being a composer, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Same thing. The other one is the Shema. Siva Pick wrote, Shema.
Yep, we'll do that here on a Friday night. Yep.
That maybe because he did it at a camp, and what is done at camp often makes its way into shuls. For example, the Kehilah that was done at camp. Before then, it was Baruch Atah Kehilah. That's the only thing they did in shul until the kids came back from camp. Yeah, but the Shema. I wrote something, but I didn't change the melody. I took the trope.
So straight out. So the way it's the way it's chanted in the Torah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But Shema. Oh, what did I do? I hit the button again. Shema Israel. Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, V'hayu Habarim Ha'ele, Asher Anochi, so on and so forth. I just harmonize.
Wow.
But it's the same melody. But again, I came close to messing with it, but I didn't.
That's it's so interesting. So just to go ahead and explain where does the Shema, the watchword of our faith, our creed, I guess you would say, Adonai is Hero Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one, comes from the Torah. And there is a specific way of chanting the Torah. So so it's Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Right. So that is the way that it is outlined in the Torah, yet we sing it globally in a completely
Yes.
different
Yes.
way. Can you play the Zolzer Shema?
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Right. So how many of you have heard that? How many of you believe that that is the way that it was played on Mount Sinai?
Oh,
Right?
That takes me to another place.
Right? So the fact of the matter is that if the people would have gone to Mount Sinai in the late 1800s, that's probably what they would have sounded like. But no, that was taken by a cantor, Solomon Zolzer, who was the Uber cantor of Vienna, Austria, and he incorporated a modern Bavarian tune into a sacred space. So it's interesting how, even though there are things that are sacred that we don't mess with,
Yep.
it has successfully been messed with, and this new has become holy. What did you want to go ahead and comment
We
on
have
that?
just a few minutes left.
Sure.
What you were saying about coming from Mount Sinai.
Yeah.
I was at a function, an Orthodox wedding, and it was going to take place right after Havdalah. So, the band's getting set up over there, and of course, we can't start anything until after Havdalah is done. And I'm hearing these two guys over there, the Black Hatters, over there saying, "So it's time for Havdalah. Which melody should we use?" "Well, the regular one." Little do they know that A, a woman wrote that, B, it did not come from Sinai, and C, that woman was gay.
That's very true. That is very, very, talk about, what are the things that are sacrosanct?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting. It's so interesting. So we do have about 3 minutes left. Why don't we take one more question? And then Chris, if you want to have any final words for us, especially about Sunday or something like that, we would love to hear from you. One more question from someone. Jackie, did you have a question? Let's open the floor for Jackie.
I don't have a question.
Well, how come?
I don't know.
Let's see. Anybody else have a question? Because then I'll popcorn it. Let's see.
Who is going to be speaking to the audience on Sunday? You said there's going to be some sort of a 45-minute talk or something.
So there's going to be a 45-minute VIP pre-concert reception for lead donors and VIP ticket holders and their guests. It's not going to be a 45-minute session. It's going to be a 15-minute session. So I'm really glad you asked that question, because then I can explain it a little bit more. It's going to be both Chris and I talking a little bit about what people are going to experience the day of. And then we will end with a really lovely moment that will start the concert off together, celebrating the journey that it has taken for all of us to get here. So if you haven't bought your tickets yet, we're a few days away and tickets are selling fast. So please get on Ticketmaster and buy your tickets for the Hallelujah concert. $36 general admission, $180 VIP admission. You can go ahead and type in Hallelujah concert on Ticketmaster in the search bar, and it'll go ahead and come right up. Or obviously, you can talk to Jackie if you are an MVPC person. You can talk to Jackie or I if you're a CBI person. Brother Stan Lewis if you are a PRBC person. But what it's really going to do is put us in the mindset. Because a lot of the music that you're going to be hearing will be in a foreign language. It'll be in Hebrew. It'll give you a little more advanced knowledge about what the piece and pieces are saying, so you can be more of an active listener, as using Chris's words. And we can't wait to go ahead and see all of you there. So Chris, why don't you go ahead and share with us a final thought? And we have so enjoyed meeting you and getting to talk with you today.
This has been a blast. I've enjoyed this a lot. I'm looking forward to Sunday for many reasons. One, because of this pandemic, live performance of this magnitude has been verboten. And to finally have this group. We had a rehearsal last night with the singers. Those of you who were there last night, you got to know how blown away I was. Jackie, you did such a magnificent job getting them ready. I applaud you, girl. They sound fantastic. The concert, the layout, what the cantor has done here, it's going to be a fantastic, I was going to say evening, but it's really an afternoon. So please, if you don't have your tickets, get them, come. It's going to be like nothing you've ever seen before.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, you heard it. We'll see you Sunday right at the Madison Center. I was going to say right here at CBI. Do not come to CBI. The doors will be locked. No, at the Madison Center for the Arts. 3 p.m. VIP reception, 4:30 p.m. Downbeat, Mr. Hardin, correct?
Bada
At
boom.
4:30 p.m. So thank you so much. If we would love to extend an invitation to all of you who would like to come and join us on Friday night for our Centennial Artist in Residence Shabbat, featuring Chris Hardin. Chris Hardin will be joining for a couple of musical pieces and delivering the Devar Torah that night. Jackie will absolutely be here, as will I, but it'll be wonderful to welcome our new friend, Chris Hardin, here with us. So MVPC people, come on. Come to a Friday night service. It'll be really fun, and PRBC as well. So Chris, why don't you take it away with a little piece of music, and we will see you all Friday or Sunday. Thank you so much for joining us all 4 weeks. It's been a great time.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cantor. See y'all tonight.
You, Jackie. See y'all tonight. Bye, everyone. Let's see what it is. And wonderful.